That's the sound of a party deciding on a policy and rallying around its leader. Labour is not a party of Remain, but a party of wait and see. They now have a policy, but no signs of any rifts being healed. This is how close the vote was.
Thank you, and all those against.
Close enough to cause a little confusion.
Sorry, I thought it was one way, and Jenny said something else, so...
It is lost, yeah.
Yes, that was lost.
And this was the angry reaction.
Conference, this is one of the most important decisions that the Labour Party will take this decade, and I think we deserve a card vote here.
She didn't get her second vote, and policy was set.
It's an utter disgrace that we weren't given a proper say in the most democratic way possible. And yeah, I'm ashamed of the party today.
What we've just done is vote to become third place behind the Lib Dems. Very sensible.
Earlier in the day, it looked as if the vote could go against Jeremy Corbyn when Unison and their 1.3 million members said they wanted to campaign for Remain.
I'd be wrong to say I'm not disappointed, obviously. It looks silly because I argued for the point of view that lost, but absolutely buoyed by the discussion.
Throughout the day, the party split was on show for all to see as they tried to thrash out a policy.
We'll give the public a voice, a vote, democracy.
Labour is the Remain party. Remain, revolt, reform.
We cannot disregard the 2016 referendum or attempt to leave behind our heartlands in the same way the Tories have done.
We need a clear stance. It's not good enough to say we'll decide our policy on a later date.
Mr Corbyn, what's going to happen later on? After 2 days defined by division and now the spectre of defeat, Jeremy Corbyn wasn't keen to answer questions earlier on.
Mr Corbyn, will you respect the vote?
And as he toured the conference floor, the frustrated leader lost his cool.
Could I say to our friends from the media, could I just say this to you? This is our conference, these are our stalls, your behaviour, pushing past people, pushing people over and pushing past people who want to legitimately visit stalls is totally unacceptable. Can I ask you to behave with respect to our members and our conference?
Tonight, many party members left the conference hall angry, many left happy, but they all left finally knowing what the party policy was on Brexit.
So is a vote now for Labour a vote to remain or to leave? We're joined now by two Labour MPs, Alison McGovern and Stephen Kinnock in a moment. But first, our political correspondent, who you heard just now. Now, what do you think about the closeness of the vote? Was there any sense in the hall that perhaps it wasn't correct?
I think if you spoke to people who the vote went against, they would absolutely say that. I mean, you saw some of the ones that we were talking to absolutely distraught. One chap we spoke to, you know, almost in tears at the end of it. But what was really interesting through the course today, none of this has really been that clear cut. One of the votes was on the position of the NEC. I've been talking to members of the NEC, that's the governing body of the Labour Party, during the day. Lots of them hadn't agree to the wording of it. There were emails going through, there were emails going around about the wording of it. There was meant to be a meeting this morning. That meeting ended up being cancelled last night. And the other interesting thing that happened here today in the conference hall was that while you saw lots of people getting up on stage saying back Jeremy Corbyn and let's decide a position later on, you didn't hear very many voices actually backing Brexit.
Very good, thanks very much indeed. Well, now, Alison McGovern, you back a second referendum and you back Remain. So where are you today?
Well, we've moved a long way from where we were this time last year, which was we were saying when we need to keep a public vote on the table. And in fact, I think what we've seen over the year is the Tories absolutely disintegrate over Brexit, because in the end, this is their issue. And we in the Labour movement are trying to find a way through, which is to find a tolerable form of Brexit and give the public the final say over whether or not they really want to go through with this. Now, I and lots of other people will be wholehearted campaigners, as we always have been, for our membership of the European Union. And despite some confusion on the conference floor, that is absolutely clear.
Now, Stephen Kinnock, you don't back a second referendum. All you want to do is to renegotiate and then do it.
That's right. I take the old-fashioned view that I stood in 2017 on a manifesto that said Labour respects the result of the referendum but must leave with a deal. And I think we should have stuck to our guns since we started to muddy the waters. We've ended up with a very confusing message for people on the doorstep in our constituencies. And of course, we've ended up with rather shambolic, chaotic scenes today. We could have avoided all that if we'd just stuck to our guns.
So it's a betrayal to have a second referendum?
I think that the democratic result of 52-48 is to leave the European Union, but stay close, have that strong economic relationship. And that is what we should have stuck to, because the political messaging around this is disastrous.
I just don't understand what could be undemocratic about offering the public the final say. The referendum was 3.5 years ago. If it had been a general election result, we'd be having another one by now. There were many flaws in that referendum that we need to rectify so that we know that people are absolutely clear what it is that they're voting on. So the fact is that the Labour Party and the Labour movement is pro-European. It has been for a long time, and that's what we've seen again today at the conference.
Isn't that true? It is a pro-European movement, and it's very fond of its European connections.
I campaigned for Remain, and I regret the result of the referendum, but as a Democrat, I believe that the result of a massive democratic exercise needs to be implemented before you try to change it. And
the incredible thing is that you're actually all hung by the same problem, which is that the referendum was far too close for comfort. I mean, 3 or 4% between one and the other is obviously nonsense. I mean, most countries that have referenda have much bigger margins that people have to surpass before there's a decision.
Yes, but the people of this country were told that the result would hold, and it would hold for a generation. And so we have to recognise that 52-48, the mandate in aggregate is to move house but stay in the same neighbourhood.
People of this country were told lots of things by David Cameron, and, you know, he's been back recently, I think, demonstrating all the flaws of the things that he said at the time. You know, I think that we know now so much more about Brexit than we ever did then, and it's time to give people the final say.
What are you going to do on the hustings? You're going to say, I'm terribly sorry, we don't actually have a policy on whether we leave or not. Well, is that a nice, candid way to talk to your voters?
I have a policy, and I'll be saying I think that we should be a member of the European Union because it's best for our economy, it's best for our rights, it's best for the future, for our kids. So I think, you know, Labour MPs are pretty clear, and Labour members and activists are clear too.
So we have a political party that's going to talk out of both sides of its mouth.
I think it's absurd, John. I agree with you. I don't think it passes the doorstep test to say we're going to get a better deal and then we're going to campaign against the deal we've just done. And nobody in Brussels is going to take that position seriously.
Aren't you two both banking on the idea that actually Brexit won't be the most important issue at the next election?
But, well, you know,
I pray for that.
No, I don't think we're banking on it, because actually, when I talk to my constituents on the doorstep, as Stephen says, what passes the doorstep test is telling people that we want to shut food banks. And what passes the doorstep test is the issues that both matter much more to me and Stephen than this Brexit chaos, because that is just a Tory mess.
Do you think it is possible that under a Labour government, Britain will leave Europe?
Well, I think that we have tried as Labour MPs to put forward a kind of Brexit that we could agree.
Is it possible that you may leave Europe under a Labour government?
We always said if we could get the kind of deal that would be a compromise, it could be possible. But compromise seems impossible. That's why we have to give the public...
answer.
That's right, but that's why we have to give the public the final say, because this has gone on far too long and we need to bring it to an end.
Boris Johnson is in a fix because he's either going to have to resign or break the law or do a deal. There's no doubt in my mind that that third one will be more palatable to him. He should bring that deal to Parliament, give Parliament the opportunity to debate it, amend it, and then put a vote to the members of Parliament.
There is a problem on the referendum, and that is that there's no way you're respecting that referendum if you have another.
Well, I don't see why that should be the case. I don't see why more democracy is bad for democracy. And as I said before, you know, the referendum was some time ago. What's wrong with giving the public the final say? You know, we do that as a trade union movement. When you negotiate a pay deal, the members get the final say, and that's all we're talking about in this case.
It's a tasteless question, but the truth is there are quite a lot of people who've died since the last election, the last referendum. We don't know how they voted, but a good number of older people did vote to leave, and a good number of younger people now are on the register who would want to vote to stay.
It is a tasteless question, if you don't mind me agreeing with you, John. But actually, you know, lots of older people voted to Remain as well. I personally think that it's a bit of a stereotype, and actually what matters to people is what they know now about Brexit, not what they knew in 2016.
Is a fudge the worst of all worlds, or is it rather cunning?
I think that our country has been radicalised and deeply polarised by Brexit, and I think another referendum will turbocharge those divisions. So I want to see compromise. I believe that when a democracy loses the ability to compromise, it is in serious risk of no longer being a democracy. But there's a difference between a fudge and a compromise. A fudge is just kicking the can down the road. A compromise is when you say, we accept the result, but we must leave with a deal.
But
and we should have stuck to our guns
now
on that.
before the electorate of leave, fudge and stay. That's the three-party positions.
And with respect, I think the opportunity to bring the country together over a compromise was long ago. You know, Brexit is not allowing anybody to compromise, it's just dividing us. So I think we should find a tolerable way of leaving and give the public the final say. And do you actually want this, or do you want our European membership, which, you know, as most people in the Labour Party know, is the best deal going.
Did you see how tight that vote was? I mean, are you really satisfied with it? I mean, should it not have been a card vote?
It looked quite chaotic, but I thought it was a sort of symbol of the general chaos of the last few days on Brexit. It's a shame we've muddied the waters. We should have stuck to our guns.
But I thought this conference was going to be about ending the chaos.
Yeah, I think it would have been better if it could have been organised so that it was decisive. But the reality is, we do know where the Labour Party and the Labour movement is on this issue. And frankly, to be honest, this is not really our issue, is it? This is a Tory mess. And what we should do is focus on the things that we really want to change about the country.
And you've been trying to do that, but it is drowned at all times by Brexit.
But I agree absolutely with Ali. A general election with Brexit overshadowing it will be a gift to the polarisers and the opportunists, the Liberal Democrats and the Brexit Party. Labour is a whole nation party. We're about bringing people together. Let's have a general election about jobs, the economy, schools, education, our kids, the health service, all the stuff we used to talk about in British politics. Let's get Brexit done and let's move on to those issues.
Stephen Kinnock, Alison McGovern, thank you both very much.